We will pose that question to our two panelists once again. Lincoln Mitchell, the national political correspondent for the New York Observer.
And Tara Dell, a political and business marketing consultant. Let's just pick up from Dell's question. I guess it does seem like what we expected yesterday, that the two frontrunners would solidify in some ways their leads. Is Hillary Clinton being bolstered by this fear of a Donald Trump presidency?
I would say absolutely. Donald Trump mobilizes certain Republicans. He mobilizes people who haven't shown up to vote on the Republican side, but he also mobilizes people who may not show up to vote on the Democratic side, too, who will now be more interested in voting because people are concerned about Donald Trump, particularly people who hold views that are more progressive and or more aligned with the Democratic Party. Donald Trump is a very polarizing figure, and although Hillary Clinton can be a polarizing figure, too, Donald Trump is far more
If
polarized.
anything came out of the election polls, the exit polls last night, it is that there is an angry electorate out there, especially on the Republican side, but also Bernie Sanders is appealing to that anger on the Democratic side. Is there a possibility, Donald Trump maintains that he will do this, that he will be dragging those voters over, those Bernie Sanders voters over to the Republican side if Hillary Clinton picks up the nomination?
I think that's unlikely. You know, a lot has to do with what Sanders does. If he loses the nomination and creates a story where it was rigged, it was superdelegates, they cheated me, do what you want, which would be a heck of a way for him to end his career, that might happen. If, on the other hand, he says Hillary Clinton is an imperfect progressive, she's an imperfect person, but she's much better than the alternative, and he makes it clear where he stands, and the Democratic Party and the candidate and the super PACs put millions, if not billions of dollars into convincing people of that, I think Hillary can hold those voters, those
Let's talk about the surprises from last night. We look at Ted Cruz. He did win Texas, but he also racked up Oklahoma and Alaska. Did he beat expectations, and is that going to help him going forward?
Well, it's a surprise that Sarah Palin couldn't deliver Alaska for Donald Trump.
That's right, actually.
A little sarcasm coming out there.
He has the Palin endorsement.
It will help him because his argument that, are we just going to stay behind somebody, Marco Rubio, who won the Minnesota caucus? I mean, Walter Mondale carried Minnesota, I believe, in 1984, right? This is not a Republican hotbed.
Right.
So the narrative around Rubio is collapsing.
Right.
Cruz is in a position, if anybody can stop Trump, Cruz seems to be that guy. Now, the other question is, does the Republican Party come up with another strategy for stopping Trump, which is Rubio wins Florida, Kasich wins Ohio?
Let me just challenge the Minnesota thing, because Kasich has been taking voters, and including in Virginia, where Rubio's people said he had a chance in Virginia. Right. In Virginia, Kasich took 9% of the vote. If he were to drop out right now, would Rubio have a viable candidacy?
If Kasich drops out now, Trump wins Ohio. That's the problem. They've got to come to an agreement. Rubio and Kasich, you stay out of Ohio, you stay out of Florida, John Kasich, and you stay out of Ohio, Marco Rubio. If those two can take those two big states off the table for Rubio, then we might get to a scenario. Remember, you need 50% plus one of the delegates at the convention, not a plurality. But if one of them drops out, if Rubio drops out in Florida, worried about his political future and how it might look to lose, Trump wins Florida and it's more or less
Tara,
over. They both have to stay in.
Let me ask this question. Who has it wrong? The Republican establishment that says that Donald Trump has hijacked their party, or Trump, who says that he has given their base a voice?
Well, I think actually both are true. Because Donald Trump has, in fact...
That sounds awfully political.
It does sound very political, but let me explain why. So the Republican Party is saying now they're condemning Trump, for instance, about not distancing himself or disavowing the Ku Klux Klan, correct?
Yeah.
But yet this same Republican Party, this same establishment, has a House Majority Whip, Steve Scalise, who spoke at a white supremacist event. So the Republican Party has a lot of its own issues with divisiveness, with extremism that have existed long before Donald Trump. Donald Trump, what he did was he came in and he hijacked the part of the party that felt that their voices were not being heard. Yeah. But the extremism has existed before Donald Trump.
Let's actually play the bite from Speaker Paul Ryan that you're referring to, Tara. Him saying that Donald Trump's response to David Duke's endorsement, him basically denouncing that. Let's listen.
Today, I want to be very clear about something. If a person wants to be the nominee of the Republican Party, there can be no evasion and no games. They must reject any group or cause that is built on bigotry. This party does not prey on people's prejudices. We appeal to their highest ideals.
There has been one senator, one Republican senator, that has said he will not vote for Donald Trump. Paul Ryan stopped way short of that. Mitch McConnell stopped way short of that. They are still not saying they would not vote for Trump if he becomes the nominee.
I think there is a strain of bigotry that exists within the Republican Party base. And the Republicans can try to, say whatever they want at this point in time to sort of hurt Donald Trump. But the reality is, if you look at Jeff Sessions, who did endorse Donald Trump most recently, Jeff Sessions did not get confirmed as a federal judge because of comments that he made that he was okay with the Ku Klux Klan. So I think there's no reason that doesn't exist, this problem.
But I have to ask this question. If we were talking about a normal election cycle, though, Donald Trump would be the presumptive Republican front runner and potential nominee. We would be talking about how the Trump campaign seems to be on a roll. With all of this said, with all of this talk about bigotry, et cetera, are we looking now at a brokered convention on the Republican side?
We have to get from here to there. And that will take what I was talking about earlier. Somebody has to win some states besides Donald Trump. And you could do, the old days would be called the favorite son strategy, very gendered language. There's not enough favorite sons in the Republican Party to really stop Donald Trump at this point. That's the problem. That's the problem with the strategy of a brokered convention. I would just add one thing, though, about this issue of the Klan. If you begin the conversation about race, about is somebody a racist with did they denounce the Klan, it's a nowhere conversation, right? David Duke is a busted valise of a bigot, right? The KKK is a terrorist organization. It's one of the worst creations in American history, but they're not at the center of American politics, right? If you stop the discussion of racism when you talk about things like police brutality, when you talk about things about laws of discriminating against LGBT people, if you don't talk about things like support from pastors who say Jews are going to hell, you're not really having a conversation about racism, right? You're holding out the KKK as the wild, extreme example.
Well, you're having a conversation with a big segment of the Republican base, it seems.
But it's not a real one, because if you really care about racism, you don't step in when David Duke endorses, right?
Well,
you step in way earlier.
That's my point.
That's
this
exactly
strain
the point.
existed well before. This is just a manifestation of a larger issue.
Then when we talk about that larger issue, and I want to go to that rally, that Trump rally, where Black Lives Matter protesters were face-to-face with Trump supporters. There were black faces with Black Lives Matter, white faces with Donald Trump. Is that going to spill over? In other words, is this genie now out of the bottle, regardless of whether we're talking about Donald Trump or we're talking about police brutality?
I think yes, right? This is a guy who clearly, he has won votes by, he's a unifier the way I'm the center fielder for the New York Yankees, right? He has won votes by saying, watch another of the clips we showed yesterday where he says, "Are you from Mexico?" What? You can't.
But the question is the guy in second place, is he a unifier either? I mean, Ted Cruz is basically...
Ted Cruz is a mainstream right-winger, right?
But no, that's the problem the Republican Party has, though. They have a choice right now between seemingly what it looks like at this moment is Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. They don't like Ted Cruz. Much of the Republican Party does not like Ted Cruz, and up until this point, Ted Cruz is becoming a little bit more palatable because Trump is so unpredictable and so uncontrollable.
And bottom line, here's what I don't think we saw last night, and I think you'll agree, a strong alternative to either Cruz or Trump.
And we are getting a strong rap right now from our producers, so this will
We'll come back to this conversation. Lincoln Mitchell and Tara Dowdell, thank you.